Welcome to the In-Depth Genealogist Chit Chat Live for the week of 12 March 2017. Hi, everyone. I am Valerie Eichler-Lair, your host for the IDG Chit Chat Live. Today, we're going to be talking about the second episode of Who Do You Think You Are?, the second episode of Relative Race, and the newest episode of Long Lost Family. Joining me this week is Sherry Hudson-Passy. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, good to be here tonight.
Good to have you too. Sherry does the Carolina Girl genealogy blog. She's also a writer for the Going In Depth digital magazine of IDG, and she's a professional genealogist. We also have our friend from Canada, Christine Woodcock. Hi, Christine.
Hey, everybody.
Good to have you. She's also a writer for the Going In Depth magazine and owner of Genealogy Tours of Scotland. And then we have IDG executive director, right? Executive director Terry O'Connell. Hi, Terry.
Hey, Val.
It's like I don't know what you do or where you are.
That was pretty funny.
And I'm also a professional Jenny, and I'm owner of valsroots.com. Thanks, everyone, and welcome to the show. We're really excited to talk about these 3 TV shows going on right now. There's a lot to chat about, so let's get started. The first up is Relative Race. And Sherry, what's the latest about Team Black and tweeting?
Okay, I'm a little obsessed. So I've been live tweeting during Relative Race, and all the contestants have been chiming in and giving their thoughts on the show and what's going on. They're tweeting to each other about things that are happening. They are putting up videos so that you can see the scenes after the show and things that are going on. So that's been really, really, really fun. There was a few people that were a little upset at the end for Joe when he was showing the little video cam at the video cam diary, and he showed his wife, and he says, "Oh, you look like you're 60 years old in this video."
So right.
I thought he said 16.
I thought he said 16 as well.
He said 60, and so people were going after him about that, and so he tweets, hey, wait a minute, there was more to that story, and they cut it out. So it's been fun doing that because when you're live tweeting and they're tweeting as well, then you're hearing some of their sides of the story and what's going on. So I encourage anybody who likes to tweet to do that during the show and use the hashtag Relative Race. And I always use Team Black as well, unless I see something fun with one of the other teams, and then I'll say something to them too. But I follow them all, and some of them have followed me back, and they're also on Instagram, and they're also on YouTube. There are some, if you go to YouTube and you search Relative Race, they have some behind the scenes kind of videos that are on there that you can watch as well. So I'm getting a little obsessed, and I just think the show is just so much better this season because they're all just really, especially with this last episode, they're all really understanding what this is about. Yes, they want to win, they want to earn the money, but it's like they all clicked with this episode of, oh, the family. This is about the family, and that's what's most important. So I really thought this was a kind of a turning point for all of them. It's like, oh, yeah, this is what we're here for. So it was great. I loved it, especially Team Black. And, like we said, you got to have some Kleenexes and as they meet their family.
How did Team Black do? What's the results?
Well, unfortunately, Team Black got their very first strike. But you know what? It was because they had to do that accounting challenge. They had a challenge where they had to answer questions about accounting. I would still be sitting there.
I would have lost.
I'd still be sitting there. So, and it was funny because at that point when they had showed that, and then they showed that Team Green had just count the chicken eggs, Joe Greer tweeted, "Wait a minute, what the heck? Why are they counting chicken eggs? We had to do that darn accounting test." So that's another fun thing with doing the live tweeting is you get to kind of see those fun things too. But I thoroughly enjoyed the show, but I am very, very sad that they got their strike after they had such a wonderful day of meeting Joe's mother's aunt. He met his great aunt. And so And she made him a book of photos, which I thought was amazing. And she showed him videos when he was a child. I mean, amazing. He a whole part of his life where he said he had just a couple of pictures, and to get that part of your life back and to be able to look at the pictures and his face when she opened the door it just said it all. His face when she opened the door.
Well, I know when I saw the video of when he was little, the home videos, and then saw the album that she put together,
Right.
I heard each one of you crying.
Exactly. And Joe posted a picture on Twitter too of he goes, yeah, I confess I had a mullet, because one of his little kid when he was really little, about maybe 2 or 3, and his little blonde hair, and it looked like he had a mullet. But so for him to get all that, to have that, those memories returned to him and restored to him is just, it's priceless. Like he was saying, that book is priceless.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, thanks, Sherry, for your insight. Christine, what did you think about the first challenge where they had to memorize the family tree and get the pictures and everything in order?
Honestly, I was glad it wasn't my family, because my grandfather fathered 21 kids.
Oh, gosh.
Like Sherry was counting, I'd still be there. Although in my family, I'm probably the only one who could ace it. But when they were watching, when we were doing that, when they were doing that accounting one, I loved when Joe said, "Yep, accounting, math, and Chinese, kind of all the same thing."
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that was awesome. And the same, I mean, just the, I really, my heart really tugged as well for Team Red when she saw somebody who looked just like her grandfather.
Yes.
And just, I mean, I'm sure that I've got chills now just thinking about, staring into the face of somebody who looks that close to you. Val, are you tearing up, honey?
Yes, she is. Yes, she is.
Yes, she is.
Yes. Because the picture, right behind me, I'd have to adjust my camera, but the one that I overlaid my mom and my newly found, her biological mom, and the pictures are, and so when that part of the show came on, it's like, oh yeah. Yeah, I'm tearing up.
Right.
Yeah. And then for Joe to be able to reclaim his childhood. I mean, that, I was just fascinated with those videos.
Yes.
And then I didn't catch right away that he was getting a copy of that album.
Yes.
And I kept thinking, oh, give him a copy, give him a copy, give him a copy. So I was delighted when actually that happened. So, and like I said, pre-show here, I said, even if he loses from this point forward, he has already won. He really has already won, just in getting that relationship back.
Absolutely. And they all had touching experiences, each team. The blue team, he was looking at the DNA, and they were realizing where they were connected back in in Africa. And then the green team, she was meeting with a cousin who had never met somebody from her biological family. And so they each had a deep connection this time, and I really feel like they each they clicked as to why they were running this race. Yes, they want the money, but it's those family ties that were more important. I think it really clicked and made them, as I said, tomorrow's another day. So as they go out for the next day, I think they've got that now. Hey, we want to see who we're going to meet, and we want to make it to the end.
Yeah. Terry, give us your thoughts.
This episode should have came wanting to have a box of tissue with you. Every segment the Team Black was in, I think I cried. And not like sobbing, but just like those silent tears, because it was so touching. Now, I believe when they started, Joe had mentioned that he didn't know his dad, and I think that was the family he was really trying to connect with, I believe. But even seeing him make this connection with the maternal great aunt, somebody who he knew as a child, and somebody who loved him to no end. I mean, that was very obvious. She was thrilled to see him. That was then, this is today. We didn't have you in between, and that doesn't matter. We're going forward. So heart-touching. And like Christine said, even if they get the next 2 strikes, which I hope they don't, he's already won, because he has found people who love him for who he is today, who he was as the little boy, and for somebody who loved his mother genuinely.
Right. Right.
I think everybody, you know, we all need that connection, that family connection. So very, very heart-touching. And that his wife is just so gracious that she knew that that was just his moment, and she stepped to the side and was like, this is for him. You know, I didn't need to be in all that.
Mm-hmm.
There's just
let me get technical, because I'll sit here and start crying all over again. My eyes already red. But the red team, when he first introduced, you know, they introduced themselves, and he was saying, you know, about her grandfather, and, you know, and then he said, we're second cousins. And I'm going, no. And I'm writing it out. And it so reminded me of my mom, because, you know, if that's her first cousin, it's got to be my second cousin. And I'm going, no. But when they went back to that in the show, then he said, we're first cousins, one generation removed. And I'm going,
I was very glad they clarified that as well, Val.
so yeah, it's that self-proclaimed OCD. So, but yeah, the sharing the memories, and what touched me real quick before we go on, is they mentioned the different diversities, you know, the music background and so forth. So, and everybody's got to watch. You've got to see the 400 plus GI Joe dolls.
Oh my word! Oh, what a collection!
That was unbelievable.
That was kind of scary.
Yeah. Creepy in a way, but yeah. But you know what? The other thing was that in each case, for the red and the black, the family, whoever the in-between relative was, had lived with the person that they met. Right? So Joe Joe and his mom had lived with that great aunt, but on the red team, he also said, your grandpa used to come and stay with us when he was in the area to do music. So, I mean, there was really an intimate connection, right?
Yeah.
And I loved it when they said that, you know, it doesn't matter about the race, really. It's, you know, meeting family and being around family. So yeah, it is. I'm hooked.
Yeah, this season is definitely grabbing me a lot more than the first one. I will say that I do agree with Joe on the whole challenge thing. Counting eggs, a counting test. Like, where's the fairness in that?
Yeah. even if you broke one and you had another 10, who cares?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, good show. Just really quick, Val, before you go into the next thing, Sherry had some computer problems. She's been kicked out. She doesn't know if she's going to get back in, but just so you know where we're at with her.
Okay. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. The next up to chat about is Long Lost Family. I believe this is the 4th or 5th episode that just took place this week. And Christine and Terry both watched the show, and I did as well. Christine, go first and give us a setup about this week's Long Lost Family.
Right. So the two episodes the two people that they were trying to reunite, one was a sister who had been separated from her 2 younger brothers. She was 10. And, you know, it's such a sad story because mom kind of fell apart. Mom had 2 major losses in her life and just kind of fell apart. And I can absolutely understand that. And the little girl just thought, you know what, I'm going to keep this family going. And she cooked for the boys, and she made sure they got off to school, and she really just took over the mothering role. And as dysfunctional as that was, they were a family. And then all of a sudden to have social services come in and say, no, that's not a family, because, you know, there's a judgment piece on there, right? And then to separate them, and she didn't even know if they stayed together. And then to find out that, you know, yeah, they had stayed together, but geez, it was a horrible life for them. You know, I just felt so heartbroken for the life that those boys have been through. And I loved when she said at the end, you know, they've had some ups and downs, they've got some scars, but, you know, we're back together and we're going to heal that, and it's all going to be okay. So I love that piece. And then the other one for the lady looking for her family. And, you know, I was saying earlier that poor Chris Jacobs, when he's the host, and when he's listening to these heart-wrenching stories, he's like Val. He's just tearing up in there. I just felt so bad for him. But again, to be able to reunite, and the mom doesn't matter if you're black or white. She was biracial, actually, and in this family, we don't have color, and the cousins and the grandkids and everything. But what really got me was she said she had never fit in being biracial. So she had a white mother and a black father, an African-American father. And then she was raised by an African-American couple, but her skin was so light, she never really felt like she belonged to them either. But then when they did her DNA, no wonder she didn't fit in, because she was more European than anything else. She was 67%. So that was really a fascinating piece as well, just to see, wow, that was great. I really, really enjoyed it.
It was definitely a very good show. I'm with you with like the whole Chris Jacobs thing. I was like, oh my God, the man is going to totally cry on TV. And I had never really watched for his emotions before, but now I think I'm going to be watching each time it's on to see how close he comes, because I thought for sure he is going to break down.
Yeah.
Because her story was so sad. I mean, they were both very sad, but the whole, I've never fit in. I talked black so I could be black, but I was never black.
I know.
Black, but I wasn't white. Who was I? Oh, it was just heart-wrenching. Anybody has to grow up questioning, where do I belong? Where do I belong?
And it's funny, because it's the first time in a while where the episodes weren't, geez, thank you for what you did, and I had a great upbringing, and in both of these cases, it was awful.
Rough, yeah. And then the boys, oh,
I know.
You could just see it in their faces that they had a hard life.
They were so sad.
It just, do you just want to put your arms around them and say you're loved?
It's all okay. Yeah.
We're going to be okay. We're going to get through it. I'm glad that their sister went on this journey and found them, and I truly hope that this brings healing for all of them.
Yeah.
Well, what was really good is that they had, she was 10 years old, and I believe they were 6. So they had a really good, solid beginning as far as knowing each other and so forth. So they had that very, I guess, beginning when the nurturing, and then when they had to go away, that's when the bad things started and stuff. And I could just see I can't remember which one. He was on the right when you're looking at the TV. The sadness and the hurt on his face is like, oh gosh, stay focused. I did watch it the second time when it repeated later on that night, at least out here for me it did, and that's when I could take more notes. But and to see the Chris then, and they had the camera on him quite a bit and quite a long time. So but I was my favorite part was seeing them at Allen County Public Library, because I was just there last fall.
Yes.
I do wonder, and Chris, maybe you could shed some light. So these families that adopt, after those papers are signed, does anybody go in and check on home life?
They do now. They do now, but they didn't then.
Okay.
So they do, but you know what? It's not sort of when the child is under the care of the well, here it's the Crown, but there it's the state. It's it's really mandated. Like, you have to see the kid within the first X number of hours, and then you have to see them within 7 days and 30 days and every, like that. Whereas once the adoption happens, you don't. You just pop in a couple of times or 3 times, and what are they going to say? It's like the British home children. What are you going to say? This person, you see them once or twice a year. You don't know they're going to help you, right? And my heart aches for that 10-year-old raising a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. And then she must have felt for her whole life she blew it. I wasn't good enough as a caregiver, and now I don't have my brothers.
You could see how much
heart-wrenching.
How it profoundly affected her life just with the way she was interacting with her children.
Yeah.
I hope they do a what happened next.
on that one.
Follow
Yeah.
up on that one.
Yeah.
What touched me too is my mom was adopted, but I got the hint that she wasn't at the time she was a child because I had gotten the entire file of all these visits. The first couple 6 months and then a year, and I'm going, well, if she was legally adopted, they don't come out that often here, according to whatever was going on at the time. Come to find out, she was still a foster child, so she was still under the state state school, and so it wasn't until she was older in life that's when they found out she wasn't legally adopted, and so forth. So but I've seen that in families when I lived in California, how when the social services come in, when they get even one phone call from a neighbor, and that's what happens, what you saw. Yeah. Let's go on to something that'll make us smile and laugh.
Because that wasn't it.
Who do you think you are? And this time it featured Julie Bowen. And oh my gosh, I was drooling over the Chicago research. And since my ancestors were there, and then an added bonus, having my ancestors were in Pennsylvania, so they had the Pennsylvania side of it. So it's like, ooh, and then so Terry, fellow Chicagoan, the chat floor is yours.
I love to see them come to Chicago. It was great to have them, they went into the Pritzker Library, and then the first building, which I don't remember what they called it today, it had to have been like right next door because they had the same gold doors and everything.
The Art Institute.
Well, that was the Art Institute?
The first place she started out at her house on Ancestry with the computer, right? But then took off to go to Chicago, and that was the first place they went,
because that was where he lived, right? And she said that had been the apothecary or something. Was that same?
No, that's the Lemoyne House.
Oh, the Lemoyne House, yeah.
It ended up being the Illinois Athletic Club,
right? And that's where all the bigwigs got together to network, right? And all the Who Wants to Be Anybody.
Yeah. Well, it was cool.
Hey,
it's always cool to see them in Chicago. I wish we would have seen a little more Chicago record beyond the newspapers. I mean, everything else was pretty much federal records that they use. But it was great to see Jean Bloom, president of the BCG, in her first episode of Who Do You Think You Are? She did a great job. I guess
you could tell she was a little bit nervous, though.
Yeah, but that's okay.
In the beginning, just a little bit, but who's not?
I have to say, I think my favorite part of the episode was in the Pennsylvania portion when they were at the Lemoyne House. She had heard her whole life that there was a family story about the family being connected to the Underground Railroad, and that went from, this family story to family fact, that they were able to provide the information and show those wonderful records that were housed at the archives in the Lemoyne House. I mean, it was just a wonderful, wonderful, I don't even want to use the word story because it's fact, history for that family to have that deep of a connection and to have people at that time period that were looking beyond what's in front of their face and being out to help every man.
And that where they were located, where they did the episode there in Washington County, the Historical Society, that was the Lemoyne House?
Yes. So that was her ancestor's home.
Mm-hmm. It was good, yes. Sherry, or Terry, I'm sorry.
I'm back.
Welcome back. Terry, talk a little bit more about the Chicago, because they were there in the Illinois Athletic Club. It was there on the stained glass. Oh my gosh.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
And then also talk a little bit about Pritzker's, because I know you've probably been to both places.
I've been to Pritzker's a couple times. It's been a couple of years. They have, their library is, I will say this is very cool. Lots of books, many different languages. I went in asking once about the Russian army. Because my mother-in-law's grandfather was in the Russian White Army. And they're like, we have many books, but they're all in Russian. So it did me no good. But it's cool to see that they have all of that. You know, one day if I find someone who happens to read Russian, I can send them there that way to kind of do a little bit of peeking for me and see what they have. But everybody there has always been very, very helpful. The library is very, very quiet. It's a nice place. They had a great, when I was there a few years ago, they had a great exhibit going on for the women in World War II. So that was cool to say. So I haven't been in years, so I don't know what they have going on today, but I get emails all the time. I just delete because I'm not a downtown person. Don't like the traffic.
I know. I'm still waiting for that follow-up on my little guy.
And you'll wait till I have a file this thick and I can do it all at once.
That's okay.
Like I told you, you'll have
direct line for
the end of your life.
Well, the direct line for that, she's 80, so you got some time before I have to give that to her.
And what's funny is when she left Pritzker and she walked out and her car was waiting and it was like she crossed the street and got in and there was no problem. Let me tell you, like it takes you 20 minutes to go 3 blocks. That street is never dead. Even like late at night, there's cars whizzing by. That's Michigan Avenue. I think it's Michigan Avenue. It's completely busy.
Well, I noticed right away the Christmas decorations, and then during the time, you know, it was snowing.
You definitely saw the snow coming down. That must have been our like one day of snow before March.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Sherry, welcome back, so that you can get in on your insight on hoodoo.
Okay, well, you know, my favorite thing I think about these shows and just doing genealogy, family history to begin with, are being able to go to the places where they weren't once walked, to hold documents and things that they once held. And so for them to film at 2 places where her ancestors had been, to me is incredible, because I know I will just go and I'll just sit and look and think and try to imagine what they may have done there. And you know, I'll walk on the grounds and think, oh my gosh, they probably walked here. So I'm always fascinated with those types of things. And she got to do that and hold documents that had his name on them, you know.
I think even better that she was in places that she knows her ancestors were. They were both places they lived.
Yes. Yes. It just, to me, that's amazing. It always just gives me just goosebumps and chills just to think about that. And I hope that she was able to take some time, you know, beyond the cameras and the scripts and all that kind of stuff, and just sit there and take it in and just breathe and think about the fact that her ancestors had been there and, you know, part of their lives spent there. So I hope she was able to do that.
Yeah.
What was your favorite document? Since you were talking about looking at it and holding it. He wouldn't have held this, but the oral histories were wonderful. I love oral histories, to know that somebody has recorded something that actually happened, you know, and so you can imagine that as well. And I love that whole story about the bees, you know. If the mob gets out of control, just pick up the beehives and throw the beehives into the mob. I thought that was wonderful. And that's how you find those things out, with journals, diaries, and oral histories. So what a treasure for her to be able to read that oral history. I think that was probably my favorite that they showed her. Cool. Thank you. Christine, which was your favorite part or favorite document or segment in the show?
So the Art Institute kind of took my fancy, because my brick wall for a long, long time was somebody who had left. It was a great uncle who had left Scotland, and all we knew is that he ended up in California and then died young. And he, in fact, he was quite a bit of a scoundrel. He came over through Canada. He went over to Detroit to work with Ford. He picked up a wife in Chicago, and although he still had a wife at home. And then he went, right? And then he went out to California in Oakland, and he was an incredible businessman out there for a while. And I wondered when I was looking at that Art Institute, I thought, geez, I wonder if they had one out there, because he's the kind of person who would have wanted to do all that networking and, be on the move and on the make. And so the same thing, Sherry, he probably wasn't in that building, but I wanted to know where the building was that he had been in. Because wherever that is, I want to go. Yeah, and then just, the whole stories. I mean, just the stories and being able to fill in the blanks, and like Terry said, being able to take, this is what we've been told, but we're not really sure, and then find out, yeah, it really was. And not only was he part of the Underground Railroad, but he advocated for abolition and to be rid of the slave movement, and like he was really a mover and a shaker. I love that whole piece of it. And then the history lessons. I mean, every single one of these, it doesn't matter what the story is, just being able to get the history and being able to get all of that put into perspective. It's like, wow, how did any of us survive?
I know. I learned so much of the historical context, and and the Pennsylvania one, especially since on my grandmother's side, her dad as a young child came through there, so her dad and her grandparents. So to see and hear about that was just, oh my gosh, it really touched me. And I loved, though I did have to ask a researcher on the show that I knew or know about the white gloves. I started laughing, but like she said, she goes, the Historical Society doesn't even require white gloves there. So I thought that was, it's like they did, and they made such a big part of that. So yeah, all of that, and relating to what happened then happens sometimes now, and putting what they had to go through, and the part of the bees, since I'm allergic to bees, oh my gosh, I wouldn't have had to say anything about against anybody. Throw the bees at me and I'm dead. But that was so cool how she held, even though they did say that was a copy of the original, but to hold that, I agree with Sherry, especially pointing that out. Yeah, so good, so good. Anything else anyone wants to capture before we wrap things up?
It was a great week for Genealogy TV. Yes. I loved it. Yes. Now I got 6 days to be bored until it happens again.
It's taken me all I can do to stay focused on what I have to do over the next 3 or 4 days, so I don't go down the rabbit hole looking at the records from Chicago that they talked about. So, wow, I know we blew up 30 minutes like that. We could go on and on and on and chat about it, but we need to end. And next week we'll be back, same time, on talking about the relative race, the long lost family, and Who Do You Think You Are? They're featuring Jennifer Gray.
Cannot wait.
Wow.
Can't wait. One thing I want to point out is that when Terry loads and keeps this chat video up, she'll include the link to the Washington Historical Society, and you'll see the picture of Julie Bowen, the curator and the director, and what they did, taking pictures wise. So anyway, back to that. But yeah, let's look to the future, and it's Jennifer Gray. I think they mentioned that she's going to be in Chicago too. Am I right, Terry?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't see.
I know there's one other person, but I can't.
Let me look real quick. Hold on.
It's either her or Jessica Biel. And I thought, oh, good, another Chicago.
I'm all about another Chicago.
Yes. And one that's coming up about, we won't go that far ahead.
It's not telling me, but as soon as I do know, Friday is usually when we have our previews up on the blog. So that's when we'll know for sure what's going on with Jennifer.
Great. Thank you, Terry. Thanks so much, Terry and Sherry and Christine, for being here today. And we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a line. I'll let Terry bring that up.
I'm like, hang on, I can't get anything to work today.
I hear you.
I'm glad it's not my computer.
No problem here.
That's okay. I have the text memorized.
There we go.
Thank you. But drop us a line in the comments below. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the IDG YouTube channel, or send us a simple email to info@indepthgenealogist.com. We'll see y'all next time, and remember to go in depth with all your ancestors. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And go Team Black.